because for just the third time under Steve Kerr, the Warriors, they will miss the postseason after being eliminated by the Sacramento Kings in a blowout loss here. And I mentioned it's the third time, right, under Steve Kerr, but it's actually the first time that this has ever happened with Steph, Klay, and Draymond Green all finishing the year healthy. So now we march into what is going to be one of the Warriors' most important off seasons in recent memory, with so many questions swirling, and none bigger than Klay Thompson, who was 0 for 10 in that play-in performance and is headed toward free agency. He spoke just moments ago.
We've been through the highest of highs and lows, whether it's losing a championship, winning a championship, missing the playoffs. We've been through everything together. It makes me grateful to have the times I've had with them. Like, done some pretty historic stuff.
You're not necessarily ready to think about the future this moment, but like, how quickly do you think you're going to have to kind of pivot and figure that out? And what conversations do you feel like you need to have?
Well, considering it's April 17th, I don't think I have to pivot that quickly. When is free agency? July 1st? Yeah, I got some time.
He's got a little bit of time, but we're going to break it all down now because, Bob Myers, a year ago, you were participating in doing those exit interviews, and now you're sitting here with us. So if you were still in that job, what would you do? How would you go forward with Golden State?
Wow. Okay, I left that job to not answer those kind of questions. First of all, I'm here with you guys. This is not that job. Look, I will say this. Great reverence for Klay Thompson and Steph Curry and Draymond Green. And I don't know that people know or believe, but the competitiveness within those three. You don't do what they've done for the amount of time they've done it without being special inside. Obviously, we see what they do as far as shooting, Steph and Klay, and what Draymond does defensively, but who they are as people makes them rare. And so it's hard for me to watch Klay almost even heading into free agency. I think he didn't even know the free agency date. Woj knows. Most players go through free agency 4, 5, 6 times. He didn't even know the day it was.
Right.
What that tells me is he wants to be there. You heard Steve Kerr last night. You heard Steph Curry, Draymond Green. They all want him there. But what do you think it's going to come down to, Malika?
Money.
Of course. That's it. Yeah, that sounds simple, but that is what it's going to come down to. Klay will stay if he feels like he's been appreciated and paid what it's appropriate. But if he's not, that's the question. It's always kind of a pride component because it's not money. People will say, well, Klay Thompson's made all this money. Fine. Yeah. But you know what? There's a pride component to it for any professional athlete. So it's not just the money. He doesn't need any more money for the rest of his life. That's not the point, though. If somebody comes along and doubles the Warriors' offer, things might change. But what do the Warriors do? It's not just about Klay Thompson. That's the harder question. We're talking about Klay Thompson. But there's other things to be answered because you bring this team back and Klay Thompson comes back, and this is not an ending to what we saw was a healthy team that's acceptable for Joe Lacob in that payroll. So maybe, Stephen A., you want to be the GM?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before I say anything else, I get tired of people really having to be so careful about Klay Thompson. He's one of the greatest shooters we've ever seen. He's a 4-time champion. He's a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. And in the last 12 games of this year, the man averaged 21.8 points, 49% shooting from the field, 41% shooting from three-point range. Despite the inconsistency that we've all chronicled throughout this season, do you know that Klay Thompson ended up being one of the top 4 three-point shooters in the game? There's a whole bunch of teams that will want him. He still has tremendous value. We know he's great. But he's not owed anything by the organization, because last time I checked, you don't play for free. None of them. They all get paid. Okay, so you get paid when you get paid to lose. You get paid to do a job. Win. Yeah. That's what he did. He did his job. He should be revered. He should be respected. But if you're the Golden State Warriors, you got to ask yourself a couple of questions. Can I get rid of comatose half the time Andrew Wiggins? And am I willing to give up one of those young pieces along with him to get somebody to take him off my hands so I can keep Klay Thompson paired with Steph Curry and Draymond Green, and we can march forward because we did have a better year this year than last year. Okay, and if Draymond Green hadn't gotten suspended those 20 games, they probably wouldn't even be in the play-in tournament. They would have been in the first round already. Okay, if I can't do that, then what's my recourse? Because he's approaching free agency. You can talk about sign and trade. Woj can hop on that, tell me how accurate I am about that. The man has tremendous value. I just don't know if it's to Golden State as presently constructed. That's the problem. You make that business decision of you, Joe Lacob and the crew, and I don't think they should have a problem doing whatever they need to do.
I think the big question for Golden State's going to be, and Stephen A. alluded to it, how much of their young core Brandon Pajemski, Trace Jackson Davis, two outstanding rookies this year that they really hit on. Mike Dunleavy Jr. in his first draft. How much are they willing to sacrifice, maybe compromise their future to continue this timeline around Steph Curry? Because this is an organization that feels such a responsibility that if Steph Curry wants to continue to be there, which he does, and he's still playing at an all-NBA level, which he is, that they're going to try to find a way to compete. It's going to look a lot different in the spring and summer with who's available for trades than it was at the trade deadline. There weren't really significant impact players. I think it's going to be different this offseason. I think a lot of guys are going to be available. They're going to have some hard decisions to make.
You know, and you're right. But the problem is with that is if you do that, and we don't know who's available. Sometimes you do right now. You do know who's available. I don't know if you even know who's available right now. Sometimes we do. Right now we know this guy's going to ask out, that guy's going to ask out, and they're all good. The problem is you make a move like that, you got to believe it puts you in contention. Right. I don't know that there's a player right now that might even be available that gets you to a point where we're going to be a top 3 seed in the West.
Right. That's just it. You're talking about threading the needle. And the Warriors don't operate in a vacuum. Oklahoma City's not going anywhere.
Sure.
Denver is certainly not going anywhere for a while. Houston is on the come. Minnesota.
Coming back.
The West is so good that even if, Bobby, right, even if they find that player and figure out who that is and can sign Klay Thompson and can figure out whether Draymond Green is going to, you know, be an asset or do something for 20 games that cost them, even if they can figure all that out, you've still got these other teams that are really, really good and positioned. And so, wow, I'm looking at this going, Golden State's got to have a second great player. Is that player, or at least all-star player, is that second player on the roster?
NBA